who may be listening not only in America, but also the world. It is May 23rd, 2022. The new WCEG Network welcomes you. This program is Issues and Answers, and I am your host, Norman A. Carter Jr. On your computer or smartphone, you can hear us by typing in WCEGTalkRadio.com in your browser. Hit enter, and on the next screen, click the live stream tab. On your smart TV, just click the YouTube icon and search for WCEG Network. Now, WCEG stands for Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. Our programming goal is to leave you more informed and more empowered than you were before you tuned in. Our motto, we speak life into the community. Now, you may like us on Facebook and view us live. Also send in your comments and questions, and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. Now, the topics and opinions on Issues and Answers are those of me alone, Norman A. Carter Jr., and my distinguished guest, and not the WCEG Network, so leave my boss alone. This is my show. These are my words and the words of my guest. So open your ears, open your minds, and get ready to learn. Please take notes and watch replays of this program on YouTube at any time. If you are watching on Facebook, please send us your questions and comments. Ladies and gentlemen, today is my honor to introduce State Representative Roger Bruce. Mr. Bruce represents the District 61 in the Georgia House of Representatives. His district includes parts of South Fulton County, which includes part of the new city of South Fulton, North Atlanta, Douglas County, and Cobb County. He was first elected in 2002 and began serving in January 2003, and has been re-elected every 2 years since then. During his time in office, Representative Bruce has focused on issues related to children with special needs, the aging, education, working families, economic development, voting rights, and criminal justice. That covers a whole lot, doesn't it? He has served on the Insurance, Education, Motor Vehicles, MARTOC, and Intergovernmental Coordination Committees. He currently serves on the Judiciary, Game, Fish, and Parks, Small Business and Job Development, and the Human Relations and Aging Committees. Unlike many government officials who, once elected, avoid news-related interviews, State Representative Roger Bruce has always been available, even if he had to conduct his interviews during legislative meeting breaks, right here on WCEG. Absolutely. Mr. Bruce is a Democratic member of the Georgia House of Representatives, representing the 61st District, as I said before. And I guess he's here now, fresh from the 18th Annual Family Fun Day at Sweetwater Creek Park. Issues and Answers welcomes you, State Representative Bruce.
Thank you very much. I'm going to keep you around. You were able to lay out that pretty well. You know, we're going to keep you around, and every time I go somewhere, I'm going to let you introduce me.
Just sticking with the facts. and I might add to our audience that your many appearances here on the WCEG network had nothing to do with running for election. They were your desire to inform the public of what's going on in the Georgia legislature. So we thank you for that.
And thank you. You know, it's kind of an unusual thing because you're running every 2 years. And so it's almost like you never stop running. But the reality is that, you know, you have to keep people informed. You have to let folks know what's going on. And campaigning, you know, you and I have talked about this once before, has nothing to do with your ability to do the job. And the skill sets needed to serve in office are totally different than the skill sets that people seem to be demonstrating during these campaigns. All the attacks and the negative stuff that's going on. It's kind of a sad situation right now, and a lot of it, it just seems like people bought into the lies that started with Donald Trump, and then people who are trying to emulate what he did, in these local races. That's what you see going on. You don't see people campaigning for anything. You see people attacking folks that are serving, and it's unfortunate. And I hope that goes away at some point.
And that's a very important point you bring out, because I could thinking about the Affordable Care Act, that those of you who remember stuff like I do, former President Bush was putting forth, trying to get passed some of the same principles that President Obama got passed. And so the Republican Party has been running against that ever since the Affordable Care Act became law, but they never had anything to replace it. After all these years, they still don't, and they're still trying to destroy the Affordable Care Act, and that's even included in their ads even.
Yeah. But if you think back, I'm convinced that the Republican Party wanted President Obama to win. They wanted him to win because they needed somebody to blame for all of the things that went wrong during the Bush administration. And then when he got in there and he started fixing things, that kind of screwed their plan up. It was like, well, wait a minute, he's fixing this stuff. And so then the posture changed, and they were very wide open about it. Anything that he does, we're going to fight against it. I mean, Mitch McConnell, he was very clear that he was going to be on the opposite side of everything that President Obama did. And, so it was their plan that went bad. And then they elected Donald Trump, who was the exact opposite of everything that President Obama was about. And, it's, as they say, the rest is history. And what's amazing to me is that we are still in a posture to this day with Donald Trump saying that he won that election, and people buying into that. It's crazy. I don't get it.
Yeah, that leads into one of my comments, and it's not a comment, but it's a question also, that the election in Georgia here is of nationwide interest. But we have Republicans in office in Georgia who actively campaigned to overturn the results of the last presidential election. In fact, some of them are running for high offices at this very moment in this primary election. And I believe in the offices of lieutenant governor and state attorney general. And this is nothing short of dangerous.
Yeah.
Nothing short of dangerous.
You're right. If President Obama had done 1/3 of the crap that Trump did, he'd be under the jail. How do you, as the president of the United States, support an insurrection against the government? I mean,
exactly.
How do you do that? And he wasn't shy about doing it. He's sitting somewhere saying, y'all go protest. I mean, he told them to go do it, and they did. And they attacked a government building, attacked members of Congress, and even some of the members of Congress that were attacked during that insurrection, now they're still supporting him. I don't get it.
Right.
What is it about this man that allows him to get away with it? And not only that, trickle it down, to local governments. And here in Georgia, he is still saying that he won the election, and he didn't come close to winning it.
Very early in his presidential campaign, I began to call him Damian Thorne. And for those of you who don't know who Damien Thorne is, he
Yeah.
was the Antichrist in the movie The Omen. But what happened is this guy could do anything and get away with it. And when Donald Trump made that statement that he could shoot people on Fifth Avenue and get away with it, he meant it. And he's showing you how much he meant it. And here, his man supports the overturn of the United States government to suit his purpose, and he still has supporters.
Yeah, and when he went to Russia, what U.S. president would meet privately with Putin? I mean, who would do that? I mean, just for the purpose of making sure that anything that you did say wasn't misinterpreted. You want to witness that. It's almost like that movie, I forget the name of it, where they had, where the Russians had somebody from birth, go into, infiltrate the American government. Do you remember that movie?
Oh, yeah, but I can't remember the title. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. That's what it seems like. Like he was born and raised to be part of the government to overturn it. It's crazy.
Or an earlier movie, The Manchurian Candidate, where someone was actually brainwashed.
That's the name of the movie.
Yeah.
That's the name of the movie.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The Manchurian Candidate. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. That's what it seems like.
Crazy. Speaking of which, and this is sort of flows into it now, because these people, we had an armed insurrection of the United States government, and now we have a governor here, in a Republican governor, who has pushed through legislation allowing everybody and anybody to carry guns. What's your opinion on that, sir?
My quick opinion is that I think it's the dumbest thing that you could come up with. The idea that if you want to control people being killed or hurt by guns, that the way to do that is to put guns in the hands of more people, and people who have not been screened in any way, shape, or form. That makes zero sense. And every day, you start the morning, you turn on the news, and you get, I don't care what channel you're looking at, you get a list of people that got shot the day before. People getting shot, in the grocery store. People getting shot standing on the street. There was one a couple of days ago.
Yes.
This guy was standing there on the street talking to somebody, and somebody came up behind him and shot him. And I don't know if they've ever caught that person.
Nope.
So I don't know if there's any connection between the person that was shot and the person that shot him, but it didn't look like he was concerned about anything. The guy just walked up behind him and shot him in the head, and did it and did it in front of other people. So they weren't even trying to hide it. This thing about giving everybody a gun, we already are fearful of if you get stopped by the police that you're gonna get shot. There's already a fear of that.
Mm-hmm.
But now you've made the police officers even more fearful, because every time they stop somebody, they're probably gonna assume that person is armed. I mean,
Exactly.
If I was an officer, I would, so are we really being fair to those police officers that are doing their job and doing it right and not trying to hurt anybody? Are we putting them in a dangerous situation where now they may have to react differently, because the presumption is that if you stop somebody, they got a gun?
Absolutely. My question is, does this legislation mean an end to what we used to call peaceful protests? Because if you remember, just a couple of years ago, the Black Lives Matter protests, we had people standing outside their house. They were arrested with one had an AR-15, and then the wife had some sort of pistol, and nothing was ever done to their property. Their property wasn't under threat, but they were standing outside armed, and this is dangerous on so many levels.
Yeah, I'm not sure what is ultimately, happening, but we are in a different atmosphere, and I don't know if you remember a few years back, there was a bill that was introduced and passed to create a space station in South Georgia. You remember that?
Yes.
And they're building that space station. And I keep asking myself, are they building that because they know something is about to happen and they got to find a way to get out of here? Or have they met someone that's out there trying to get here and they need a place to land?
Right. It's time
I'm
to
not
leave.
sure.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one it is, but it's almost like there's a plan. Everybody get a gun. Everybody get a weapon. Let's find a way to get out of here. You hear on the news now, they're talking about all of these new nuclear weapons that are being tested. Is there a plan to blow up this planet? I don't know.
We're getting close. We're getting closer every day. Closer every day.
And so now you need these space stations to get out of here. They've launched these independent flights to outer space. People with a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
They're testing, independent transportation to get out of here. It's something bigger. We have a tendency to not want to look at stuff like that, but it's real.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why they want to get out of here.
And they're talking about setting up a colony on the moon and all this sort of stuff. I mean, this is happening as we speak, and you wonder what's the urgency for that at this time, when for years it was on the back burner, and now it's up at the forefront.
Yeah, and when you talk about it, people look at you like you crazy, but it's real. I'm not making this stuff up.
And essentially we're talking about some of the real things that are affecting not just this state, members of the state, but the country, are the recent push to change to go against the Roe v. Wade and change the abortion laws throughout the country.
Yeah, there's a big push for that right now, and we may, I'm hearing rumors that we may end up in a special session to deal with that topic, depending on what the U.S. Supreme Court does, because it's before them now. Depending on what they do, I'm hearing, like I said, that we might end up in a special session. But, even with that, people, you have to look at history to get some sense of why things are the way they are now. And if you go back, I'm sure, we weren't alive, but we've heard all of the stories about how back in the early 1900s, there was this effort to create the perfect white child. That was what Hitler was all about, this perfect white child. And if a white woman could not produce this perfect white child, they sterilized them. You remember reading about that?
Yeah.
They sterilized them. And apparently they sterilized too many of them because that process diluted the number of white children that were being born into the world. And now the population, they've looked at the numbers. We're not making this up. They've looked at the numbers and they anticipate that the majority party is going to become, the majority ethnic group is going to become the minority in 20, 30 years, something like that. So I think it might even be less time than that. So I think that has a lot to do with this push to get rid of abortion so that, that population can increase. And, we just got to look at all of the things. I'm not saying that I know that for a fact, but all of us were taught to think logically. And if I think logically and I know my numbers are going to be reduced and I don't want them reduced, then I do things to increase those numbers. And I really believe that's part of what this abortion thing is all about. I think women have a right to, I do think that women have a right to choose whatever it is that they want to do with their body. No question about that. I believe that, but I think that that is part of the issue. I think it's also about wanting to increase that population.
Well, when this subject comes up, I'm reminded of an incident I wrote about in my book that no one seems to be concerned about, but is during my police career, we basically interceded when a father attempted to rape his 13-year-old daughter. And my thought would be, had he impregnated this 13-year-old child, she would have been forever in her life walking around with a living testimony of an abuse heaped upon her by her father. And that type of thing is going on today, and people don't want to talk about it. And I think it's because the victims are women, and it's a very real thing. And I think that we really need to have the input on this topic from a lot more women than we have now, and men with open minds. And I think there's room on both sides for compromise, which is, we live now in an all or nothing society. So I think there's room for compromise on both sides. But
but with this abortion issue, they talk about women's rights to choose, and women should have a right to decide what they want to do with their body. I mean, we decide what we want to do, they should have the same right to decide what they want to do. And I don't know that, I don't know if there's any reason why the government should even be involved, other than what we talked about earlier. Why is the government involved in deciding what a woman does with their body? We shouldn't be doing that. A woman has that right.
Well, I think it's the whole argument about viability, and when they've gone to the I think it's to the Mississippi or one of the states where they're saying that even if you've had intercourse with somebody, that you're responsible for carrying that baby to fruition. It's something really ridiculous, and what it does is it eliminates totally.
There's probably somebody that is not going to be in the position to help take care of that baby saying that, but
yeah, that's the other part. That's the other part. House Bill 1084, and for those of you, and 1178, 1084 is aimed at preventing schools from teaching certain concepts, while HB 1178 gives parents the right to direct the upbringing and education of their minor children. And this is all a result of this exercise in ignorance, in fear of the critical race theory. And I believe that this may be coming up again in the next session of our legislature. Is that correct?
Well, I'm pretty sure it's probably going to come up again, but this last go around, they were trying to introduce legislation to prevent something from happening that wasn't happening. They just made up something. There was no indication anywhere in the state that this critical race theory was being taught. And the idea of telling teachers what they should teach, what they can teach, these are professional people. These are teachers that have been educated on how to prepare these young people for the challenges in the world. And by denying what happened in the past, we've talked about this, by denying what happened in the past or not exposing them to what happened in the past allows those things to be repeated. And we don't want this stuff repeated. We want people to know what happened, what the impact was of what happened, so that we don't repeat those things, so that we're not subject to it again. You and I are probably close to the same age, I think. I don't know, I might be a little older than you, but
I doubt it.
but both of us have been exposed to history.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us understand the need to be educated about the past so that you don't repeat it in the future. And to tell teachers that they can't teach certain things simply because someone else finds it uncomfortable. That there's a whole lot of things that make me uncomfortable about our past. But if I didn't know about it, I couldn't do anything about it going forward. So I don't think that legislation is going to go anywhere, but just the fact that it's being brought up, that it is hearings,
taking up time.
Yeah,
taking up time that we could be spending on budgetary concerns, and that should be the state budget. Really should be one of the things in the forefront of the voters here in Georgia as we move into primaries and probably into our state elections later on in November. Can you give us any insights to what's going on budgetary wise in our state government?
Yeah, our budget comes from primarily two sources: state revenues, various state revenues, and federal money that is sent to us from Washington. Typically, the money that comes from Washington comes with directions on how to spend it. Some of it doesn't, but most of it does. The state money is put together by the Appropriations Committee, which I happen to serve on, and which is an interesting dynamic because it's not very many Democrats that serve on the Appropriations Committee. They don't want us deciding who's going to get that money, but I do serve on it. Some of the things that were important that came out this go around was 15.4 million went to kindergarten through 12 teachers for classroom expenses. A lot of people don't realize it right now that a good number of our teachers have to spend their own money on things that they need to help them teach. And that shouldn't be the case. We've got people who are pushing for charter schools. And charter schools, the original concept was using charter schools as a testing ground. And then if something turned out to be, good and useful, then you roll it out to everything. Unfortunately, that has changed into charter schools almost being like private schools, selecting what students can attend. And in some instances, you have private charter schools, and they're asking for state money for these private schools, and which I don't support. They keep calling it school choice, which is not what it's really about. They've come up with a name that does not match what the substance is. It is not about choice. It is about choosing who goes to what school and what kind of education they get and who pays for it. Excuse me. And who pays for it. And I was criticized, for not sponsor, not. Where'd you go?
I'm still here. Still
Okay.
here.
My
We
screen
still hear you.
changed.
Oh, we
Okay.
still hear you.
All right. And
Eh,
I don't know what's going
We
on.
were
Can you
talking
still
about
see me?
school choice. Yeah, we were talking about school choice.
Yeah.
Yep, I can
And
still see you.
okay. And so we're in a situation where people are being asked to, are being said that we're not giving them the ability to choose, which is just not true. We're giving them the ability to choose. But if you choose to go to a private school, then you should pay for it with private money. And
Yeah, this all sounds to me, um, as you know, you and I have been through some history. Like this is going back to segregation.
yeah,
It's going right back to segregation, and now we're back in the 50s and 60s where the federal government said we're not giving you federal money to put money in your schools if you're going to continue segregation in your schools. Now they're trying to get federal money for
to
segregation,
segregate schools.
and that's dangerous. Uh, there's an accountability factor too. My daughter once taught at a charter school, and there was a question of dispersal of funds, and her contract wasn't renewed, but it was a very nasty situation, and it was all about accountability. And I think that this is going across nationwide, where these charter schools control everything within those schools, and they're not subject to the rules and regulations that public schools are under.
Right. And what they're doing is they're taking the money out of the public school, putting
Mm-hmm.
it into these private schools, calling it, let the money follow the child. But the problem is it's only following in one direction. If they leave and go to a private school and the money goes with them, and if they get there and they realize, okay, we still don't have enough money to pay for this, I got to go back to the private school, that money doesn't come back with them. And so that's an issue. Another item in the budget, we did put in 287 million in salary raises for teachers. And quite frankly, I still don't think that's enough. I've been tossing around the idea of trying to tie teacher salaries to that of a judge. And the way I look at it, if we had more well-compensated teachers, we probably wouldn't need as many judges. And so
Correct.
the teacher teaches them on the front end, the judge punishes them on the back end, and the judge makes 3 or 4 times what the teacher makes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the two ought to be on balance. The teachers are worth a lot more than what we pay them, and I would tie those two salaries together. If the judge get a raise, the teacher ought to get the raise. So we have that issue. We also have a lot of school buses that were damaged or that they're not running in a way that makes the atmosphere improve, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So we did put in 188 million to replace those school buses across the state. Also, we put money in the budget for financial literacy for students. We have students that go through high school, finish, and still don't know how to write a check. They don't know about about checkbooks or savings accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So we did introduce legislation in the past, and we put in the budget for that to be taught. So that when a child comes out of high school, at least they're prepared for some of the basics that they're going to face when they get out there. Savings, checking, investments, stuff like that. That was a good piece of legislation. Also, we talked about mental health, putting money in the budget. Years ago, the Republican Party, for whatever reason, chose to close almost all of our mental health facilities across the state. And a lot of those people ended up on the street. And, you know, if you ride downtown, you see people living under the bridges on tents and all this other kind of stuff. And it's crazy. I don't know if you remember the movie MASH.
Yes.
And, you know, those villages that, you know, they created for soldiers. I have introduced legislation to set up some places similar to that across the state, where we can take these people that are living under these bridges and put them in these MASH type setups where they can get food, they can get clothing, they can get shelter, excuse me, get medical attention while they try to work their way out of the situation that they're in. It's not a perfect situation in terms of housing, but it's better than what they have now. And what I'm more concerned about is them being able to get food, clothing, and shelter and medical attention. But this virus that's going around right now, I know those people that are living under those bridges are not getting vaccines and booster shots and all this stuff. They're just not doing it. And so even if we have that and we get people getting these vaccinations, to have that many people not get them, you'll never get rid of this virus. It's not going to go away. So I think it's in the public interest to set up some of these MASH type setups and give these people food, clothing, shelter, medical attention, and help them get back on their feet. But
that sounds like a cost-effective thing to do. I mean, there's obviously real estate, plenty of real estate where that could be put.
Oh yeah, I mean, you've got empty spaces all over the place where you could do that.
That's some outside of the box thinking, sir.
and that's what I try to do.
That's one thing that, as you brought up the budgetary things, and I really want to bring this up and put this in the public view. Your salary as a state legislator is really that of a part-time employee. And in fact, there are part-time employees in the business sector who probably make more than you do. And compared to other states, Georgia's legislatures are horribly underpaid. And to me, this is the same scenario as when you underpay policemen, that you lay the groundwork for some type of corruption.
Well, you know, I as I've said before, if you do this for the money, you're going to go to jail. You $17,000 is not a salary for you to live on.
Right.
And it really, all it is, it helps subsidize what you're doing. And I'm just blessed that I have other sources of income that allow me to do this. But if I was doing this for the money, I couldn't do it. And most people couldn't do it. And as I said, if they did for the money, for $17,000, and that was all they had coming in, they're setting themselves up. They're going to jail.
Or they're benefactors of the NRA. That's a whole different subject. You don't want to really get into. But yeah, I call them merchants of death.
Are we getting anybody? Because, you know, I really would like to hear from your listeners too, you know, about issues of concern to them. even if it's
Yeah.
not the things that we've talked about. We are in a situation now where we're preparing for next session. And if I can share, I think I shared this with you before when I spoke at a school of 10-year-olds or elementary school. When I left the school, I got a call from one of the 10-year-olds saying that they were in the class where I was talking about how bills get passed, and they had a bill that they wanted me to pass. And this was a 10-year-old, and I said, "Well, tell me about it." He said, "No, I want you to come back to the school first." So I get back to the school, and he's got the principal and teachers and other students in there. And the bill that he wanted passed was to allow his parents to be able to come to school without their jobs being put at risk.
Wow.
And when we checked into it, the company that his parents worked for did not have a leave policy that would have allowed them to do that. If they didn't come to work, they didn't get paid. If they did it enough times, they lost their job. So we ended up introducing what came to be known as the Parent Protection Act. And what that did, it said that the employers had to give people time off if they say they're going to their child's school, to take care of issues at the school. They don't have to pay them, but they can't take any adverse action against them. Then what ended up happening, people who take care of their parents who are disabled or handicapped said that they need the same protection. So we expanded the law, and it covers, parents that take care of the kids and parents that take care of their parents. And that was initiated by a 10-year-old. So the point that I'm trying to make is if you have people listening, we may not be talking about things that are of concern or interest to them. So take this time to send, the message, however you tell them to send it, so that we can try to know what other issues might be on the minds of your listeners, so that we can.
This is your opportunity. This is your opportunity. If you're watching us via YouTube or Facebook, you can type in your questions or your comments about anything we've talked about or something that you would like to discuss. And nothing is out of bounds. So please, we encourage you to, we have a state official here willing and able to answer your questions. This is what you really, really want. Take advantage of the opportunity.
Sure.
We wait. You brought up something in the while they're waiting about the in the budget and federal revenue, and one of the things that has always aroused my concern is that Georgia's refusal to accept Medicaid money from the government.
Yeah, and I don't understand why we're leaving all that money on the table. The Democratic caucus, we've been pushing for expansion of Medicaid. There's no logical reason other than, there's still this thought that somehow all of that's tied to President Obama, and they don't want to do anything to make it better.
And I don't know whether you whether this is true here in Georgia or not, but I know I was actively involved in this in my other career in Pennsylvania, and that when it comes to Medicaid and Medicare, the perception is, and I'm going to go back to President Obama, that this is an African American issue, when it's not, and that the people, the majority of the people who benefit from these healthcare programs are not African Americans, and it's really a sad commentary on our country where people are willing to cut their own throats in order to make a point, and it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, people approach me all the time saying we want to, we need help from the government. We need help, 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 help. And then when we talk about the help that they need, some of it's just pure welfare. There would not be a welfare system if it was just for Black people. There wouldn't be no welfare system. You know, the majority of people who get government assistance are not Black.
Correct.
We get the benefit of it, but we are not the majority. And if it got to the point where we were, then they probably would start cutting back on the programs.
Exactly. And I think that's one thing I noticed back when I basically worked for Department of Public Welfare many years ago, that the only people who would be demonstrating for welfare rights were a few college students and groups of Black people. And I guess the white folks who really needed it were sitting in the background because they were ashamed and they're just waiting for the results. And that's what's happening here in places like Appalachia, in places like portions of Georgia, where whole groups of communities are being denied health care simply because of ignorance. We do have a question here. It says, monkeypox is spreading. It's been in the news. Is there anything in place since COVID pandemic went global to assist with the next virus outbreak? And I don't think.
You know, a lot of these viruses are not new.
Right.
You know, and people don't know it or may not know it. When President Obama was in office, he dealt with about 3 different viruses that went through. He just dealt with them differently.
Right.
And people got vaccinated. People, you know, they dealt with the issue. When Trump became president, he denied that it even existed until he got it. And then he went and got what he told other people not to get in terms of medicine. But some of this, you know, and again, I'm not part of the federal government. So, I mean, I don't have all the answers to this stuff, but if you apply a logic to it, I'm convinced that some of these viruses are man-made, that the fact that they had not a cure, but a vaccine against COVID before they acknowledged what COVID was, tells me somebody's laboratory experiment got ahead of them.
Right.
And because they were telling you how to get the virus before they even knew what the heck it was, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm pretty sure that depending on what virus your listener was talking about, every day there are companies working on these different vaccines for whatever the next virus is. And I don't know where we are, like I said, you know, day to day on the vaccines, but I do know or do feel like, you know, there are people who don't want to get this virus. They know where they come from. So they are, in fact, working on
remedy
vaccines for these things and remedies.
Yeah, and I think that State Representative, you're not too far off point, because I remember back in the 50s where the United States government spread a particular virus into the New York subway just to see how fast it would spread.
Yeah,
and that was actually done in these United States of America. Well, sir, we're getting close to the tail end of our program. Do you have any closing remarks you'd like to make to our audience?
I would like for people to, you know, tomorrow is election day. I would like to see people exercise their right to vote, but it's not just a right, it's also a responsibility. Go out and and do your research. You know, obviously, I'd like for you to vote for me, but the reality is that I want you to do what's in your best interest, and look at what reality is. You know, when people say they're going to do something, ask them how they're going to do it. Make sure that it's not just verbiage that sounds good, a good soundbite. And then also look at, you know, what people have already done. A lot of the things that people say they want to do, they don't have to be in an elected position to do those things. You know, people, they say, well, I want to improve our economy. Okay, well, go, you can go do that. You don't have to be elected to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, sometimes being elected interferes with your ability to do certain things. And you can do as much, in some instances even more, in a non-elected position, because an elected position has a job title associated with it. So, and you should be doing what that job title says that you should be doing. If you want to impact schools, then you run for the school board. If you want to impact, you know, the local economy or the local area where you live, then you run for city council or mayor. I've chosen to run for state, you know, government, because that's the area that I want to have an impact on. And, you know, I often use this scenario, this comparison of a baseball team. You got 9 players on the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all 9 of those players want to win the game. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely.
Okay, but if I'm the first baseman and the ball gets hit to third base, and I run to third base to catch the ball, then I'm in the way of the third baseman.
Correct.
And my base is not covered. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
And I see this the same way. If I'm responsible for actions in the state government, and you come to me and ask me to get involved in the local government, the city government, then I'm in the way of the mayor, I'm in the way of the city council, and my base at the state is not covered. So when you come to me with issues that deal with the state, and I know everybody doesn't know the difference between, you know, what we do, but I will help you to talk to the right person to handle whatever your issue is. And your issue may be a state issue, then I'm going to be all over it. If it's a city issue, then I'm going to help you find out what city council person to talk to. And if it's federal, then I'm going to put you in touch with the right person in Congress. So that's really what it is. You know, allow us to play our base, allow us to do the things that we do to help you, but also you as a citizen have to come to us. We're not mind readers. If you got something bugging you, something on your mind, you got to talk to us. You got to tell us, and then we'll do what we can to help.
Well, State Representative, I have a couple of questions that came in. What do you, in your opinion, are the most important questions on the ballot this session?
Well, it depends on where you live. You know, every ballot is not going to be the same.
Okay.
So if you have a Democratic ballot, you know, it's going to be different than a Republican ballot. And if you live in a city and the city has something on there, it'll be different than somewhere else. I'm not sure exactly. Whoever asked the question, I'm not sure where they live.
I understand. Again, sir, I thank you, and I just want to close out with this. I may have said it before that State Representative Bruce is up for election this primary and this year, and I'd like to do my research, not only on my guest, but if the guest is running for office, on whoever he or she may be running against. And I found it odd that when I went to Ballotpedia, which is available to every citizen on the internet, and the Ballotpedia's 22 candidate connection survey, they have a survey that they said submit to all the political candidates running for any particular office. Not one, not one of the candidates on the Democratic ticket running against State Representative Roger Bruce supplied any public information. Not one, where there wasn't enough room for State Representative Bruce to get all of his information on there, but there's a lot. And so we go back to being informed voters. And I'd like to know what these other candidates are hiding. And also, are they just ego tripping? Are they just first baseman getting in the way of the third baseman? I'm just saying. Again, thank you so much, Senator Bruce. I just have some closing remarks I want to get into before we end our program. But thank you again for joining Issues and Answers.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have just a few minutes to go here. And State Representative Bruce has brought up education. He has done a lot of work in the educational field. Education has come to the forefront of political discourse throughout the country, primarily with the Orwellian attempts to rewrite history. Critical race theory, which is a graduate college course and never designed to be taught to grade schoolers, has exposed closeted states' rights advocates who have been silent since the 1970s. Recently, the Cherokee County School Board voted to ban critical race theory, which has become an issue for some parents and many conservative politicians. And even at that, some are still unsure what it's even about. Here is the irony, Cherokee County. The Cherokee Indian removal, or Cherokee Native American removal, was part of the Trail of Tears, refers to the forced relocation in 1836 to 1839 of an estimated 16,000 members of the Cherokee Nation and 1,000 to 2,000 of their slaves from their lands in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, to what was called Indian Territory in present-day Oklahoma, which was in the western United States. As a result of this forced relocation, 4,000 members of the Cherokee Nation and an unknown number of slaves died. Now, this was put into effect by, this was initiated by President Andrew Jackson and carried out under President Martin Van Buren. Now, former United States President Donald Trump publicly idolized Andrew Jackson and even placed his picture prominently in his office. How do people of color, whether of African descent or Native American descent, and humans of all races, support a president who idolized someone who's responsible for the murder of thousands of innocent people solely because of their race? Candace Smith, self-appointed Black recruiter, Herschel Walker, Georgia Senate candidate, Vernon Jones, Georgia congressional candidate, and so many others who are ignorant of the history of this country and the agenda of Donald Trump seek his support and his friendship. In a country that professes this championing of human rights, how can any American citizen support a man who is proud of his genocidal predecessor? The Trail of Tears, just as slavery, are shameful stains on the history of this country. Neither are worthy of boastful pride unless you are Donald Trump and among his legion of deplorable supporters. I could go on and on and on. But when you have people here in Cherokee County who are unaware of their history, and I hope we have enough time for me to say this evangelical rewriting of the American history because they're ashamed of it. That is really what is meant by MAGA. It is why it is horrendous for African Americans, how that African Americans can cling to those attempting to wipe history from the books. And it's the reason why Cherokee County, with a population of 274,615, is 87.4% white, 7.7% Black, and 0.5% Native American. No wonder the Atlanta Braves ridded themselves of Chief Nakahoma. Now, if we can only stop that tomahawk chop. Silence. We don't have time for us to go on further. There's so much more that I can say about this. It is just horrendous. But folks, you need to be informed voters and know who you're voting for. Election day in Georgia is tomorrow, and in so many other cities. You cannot vote for people who are supporting people who are working against your interests. You have to be informed. Anytime if you're supporting somebody who's seeking to curry favor with Donald Trump, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with your thinking, especially if you're African American, Native American, or any American who cares about this country, the United States of America? As again, I could go on and on and on. I just thank you all for listening to WCEG, your network where we try to empower you to be more informed about the environment around us. This is the final program of this season. We will be back in September. I thank you all for being our listeners for this program, and I hope to see you again in September. Take care of yourself. Peace to you all.